Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for our colleague from Asia. I know that we have a participant from Philippines, from Thailand, I can see also. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here with us for this second edition of the Digitalization Forum. We start this event just during the pandemic, so that the context of acceleration of the digitalization was a good moment to start this kind of event. So today morning, I'm pleased to welcome you with the Secretary General of IFCU, Dr. François Mabi, who is also with us today morning. And we'll say, before starting, we would like to welcome you, give you some element of context of this event, and then we will start with the first session with Dr. Geoffrey VAUGHAN and Dr. Mathieu who will be the first discussants of the first session of today morning. So François, if you want to say some words.
Okay, just a few words of welcome. So thank you, Nicolas. It's my pleasure indeed to welcome all the attendees for this new event IFCU organizes. We already did that in the past, but as Nicolas said, it was before the pandemic. And since the pandemic, we have observed that the changes, the disruptions in the higher education landscape has risen and are going faster and faster. For instance, at IFCU, one of my colleagues has worked on the futures of teaching and researching, because she observes all the impact of the pandemic, but also of the digital disruptions in our higher education world, and more specifically on this topic, the future of learning and researching. So the idea was to gather some key players coming from the academic world, of course, but also the digital world, in order to share your thoughts together, and perhaps also to tell what are your practices for the moment and how you perceive the major trends of the future in our academic field. So thank you to all of you, and I wish you a very fruitful and interesting session this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, François. So to start this first session, during the past week, I think we can't avoid it that the press, the media, but also the academic world was talking about the artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT. And the question is the first thematic of the first topic of this first table, are this generating artificial intelligence are an opportunity or a treat for us as a university? And for this first discussion, I will have the pleasure to be accompanied with two professors who has worked on the question of, on one side, on the impact of digitalization on education, on pedagogy, but also in the other hand, a professor who has worked on ethics, the question of ethics and this new technology. So I'm pleased to give the floor and to discuss today morning with first Mathieu, who is a professor and a lecturer at the Catholic University of Lyon in the Confluent Science and Humanity Research Unit. He's a doctor in physics and philosophy. One of his main research team concerns the question of the articulation between ethics, scientific research, and technological development, and is particularly interested in the philosophical and ethical issue raised by the new digital technology as big data, artificial intelligence, and robots. And also, we are very pleased to discuss on this first discussion with Professor Geoffrey VAUGHAN, He's a lecturer in English and education, and first year of doctoral school student at the Eszterházy Catholic University in Hungary. He's hold a master degree from the same university, Eszterházy Catholic University, and he obtained a bachelor degree and teacher diploma from the University of Stirling in the United Kingdom. He has been a school educator for 25 years, teaching English in the UK and internationally, and now is dedicated to researching, learning, and network improvement community of learning with a specialism in digital pedagogy and the role of artificial intelligence for learning. His doctoral work is supervised at the moment by Dr. Slutz Zlotan, and to date he has published 2 academic papers and has recently presented his first abstract at academic conference in Asia in March of this year, 2023. So to start the discussion, maybe it could be interesting to ask my 2 speakers a very simple question about, for example, I would like to ask him, what do you understand by artificial intelligence? What does it mean, artificial intelligence today? So maybe Geoffrey, you can give us some clarification about what we understand by artificial intelligence.
Sure, and thank you very much for the very warm welcome, and welcome to Mathieu as well. And obviously, this is the hot topic, the big thing. And I had a very probably narrow view of artificial intelligence up to about 6 months ago. I think I was quite in the dark, really, about what it was. It didn't seem to be in my direct field of work until probably November 2022 and the introduction of ChatGPT, and that's kick-started the whole public discussion, really, of what is artificial intelligence. But I think my key understanding is that it is not one thing. AI is not a singularity. It's not a ghost in the machine. It is a multiplicity of really mathematical algorithmic concepts that are that have been a part of machine learning for decades. And the term artificial intelligence, I think, is easy for publicity, but it is extremely complex in terms of what we mean. But I think the addition of intelligence to the artificiality is our problem, because we anthropomorphize the actual concept of AI, in inverted commas, so that we see it as a thing rather than a multiplicity of domains, expertise across a whole broad spectrum of education and science and philosophy and ethics. That's my starter for you.
Thank you. And for you, Mathieu, what do we mean today with artificial intelligence, regarding your point of view, your experience?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation and very warm welcoming words. And very glad to be here and with you, Geoffrey, to discuss those topics. It's a nice, really stimulating opportunity. And your question, you're a bit saying it's simple. I think it's not that a simple question, and at least maybe we can say accessible things on it, but it's really a key question from the ethical point of view, because as Geoffrey explained already a bit, and I totally concur, there is a kind of smoke screens everywhere for different reasons. Some are economical or probably not that well intended, but some are just because who we are and the manner we deal with information collectively and with new events, new technologies. But so I would say artificial intelligence, it's not even a thing, and it's very dangerous to present it as an entity. My view, but it's okay, it depends also on the languages, but I think in French it's even the ambiguity is stronger than in English. Normally in English, intelligence means like gathering information, classifying information. It's like CIA. It's not an entity. But so for us, it's good to think. At least it's my position that artificial intelligence, it's more like a domain, like philosophy or physics, or in which we do they do programs, algorithm, computers, computing structures, machines, but there is nothing that we should properly call this is an AI. In my computer there is an AI. No, there are programs coming from the artificial intelligence domain, and the idea of artificial intelligence, it's more or less precisely defined even like that, but basically it is to do programs that are very strong, very powerful, at doing some tasks that demand information processing. And if you want to be a bit more precise, probably there is a connection with cognitive science, because you have two broad domains. Artificial intelligence, it's always about transforming inputs data into output data, and that the transformation is interesting. And it can be interesting because we managed to do new tasks that were really resisting before, so it's a bit contextual. And then we say it's new, so it's the domain of the groundbreaking domain of what we can do with computers. And the other part is to make programs that can simulate or modelize the manner cognitive systems are functioning. It can be up to simulation of brains or nervous systems, and sometimes you have overlaps between both. But really, it's really important to remind, even if we all around the table here know that, even if it's the case, it's really important to say that it's always about, and to people outside, it's always about automatically transforming data. By computers, and computers basically they're big machines with switches that actionate other switches that at the end of the day change a magnet on a hard drive disk from the north-south like this to south-north like this, and this is what a computer do. And with that, we managed to give inputs like pictures at the entrance, and get a new configuration of 1 and 0, or a magnet on the hard drive disk, to simplify. That will mean for us that the picture is a picture of Mathieu Guillermin or of something else. And maybe the last thing we can say now that is important to share. Sorry, it's a bit long, but it's, I think, the minimum we need to draw on if we want to talk properly, is that it's very important to understand that for me at least, artificial intelligence is not about machine learning only. Machine learning is the new or the most recent technique that provides very powerful algorithm, but there are many other techniques, and we still use them, and that in the background everything is programmed by hand. But you can see machine learning as a kind of technique of programming, where you, instead of writing a full program completely, you write rather something like computational architecture with 3 parameters in it, and then you write another program who will try to tweak the parameters to, hopefully, if it's possible, to find a configuration of the parameters that do the job we want to do. And this works since 15 years, a bit more, very well now, and more, because we have many examples of what we would like a program to do. And if you have that, then you can hope to, by trial and errors, to find the good parameters in a complex program like ChatGPT. It's complex like hell, and it's probably overly complex by comparison to what it can really do, usefully speaking, but we will return to that after that. But the idea is that if you have example, because if you don't have example, then you can say, okay, let's try to automatically parameterize a program. But how do you guide the tuning of the parameters? You can't. You have to define something that guide the parameter, the tuning. And so if you have example, you use those examples to try to get something that is properly tuned to do the transformation we want in the data. Okay, I stop here, but it's very important to get that ground, that minimal ground, and we can return to it if there are some questions afterward.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we've never met before, and we both share a similarity in that concept of AI, which is very different than the popular news media simplicity and simplification of this extremely wide and diverse area of, as you say, science, mathematics, cognitive science, etc. And I'm really pleased that we've started by both having that view.
Yeah. I agree, and maybe one general ethical message that we can have from that is that if there is an existential risk for humanity because of AI, it's not because of AI. I read that from someone on LinkedIn, and I don't remember who, so sorry, but he said there is no, and I totally agree, there is no AI posing an existential risk to humanity. There is humanity posing an existential risk to humanity, because AI remains a tool. When you do machine learning, you can produce probably more powerful programs, but also programs that are a bit more difficult to understand how they, what they do in terms of pure computation, but it's so complex, and you don't know why it do that, and so you can't really predict why it will do this or that. But ChatGPT, for instance, if tomorrow you say it's more than just something answering text to text prompt, it's because a human will have decided that. So of course, exactly. you can put ChatGPT through what he says connected to a nuclear plant. You can do that, and to steer the nuclear plant that way, you can do it. But it's a human choice. And it's the same type of human choice as if you would put a monkey in the control room of the nuclear plant, letting him doing whatever he will do. You can't predict, and it's the human responsibility to avoid doing that. So it's really important to understand that it can be surprising what an AI program, let's call it like that, will do, but it's never intending, it's never willing. It's always either good or bad intention from human, based on well understood and well mastered programs, or it is an dysfunctionment, a not functioning well enough program, not understood well enough program, but as if you would write it just by randomly, then it will do random stuff, and it's just a wrong idea to do that. But we really have to understand it like that, and then the key question becomes not how do we protect ourselves from AI, but how do we organize ourselves collectively to define what we need and to make it happen, even if it's not the most profitable for key actors at the political and economical side.
Yeah, very well said, Mathieu. I agree entirely. And I don't know if one of the leading commentators that you follow is Gary Marcus from University of New York, and he's doing a lot of work in the public sphere at the moment about just this, just this. There is a danger of humanity's use of, let's put it in inverted commas, AI, but it's humanity that is the concern about their use. And I think he just spoke at the US Senate hearing on AI, really to warn about the human use. and what we have to do to look at that side of the ethical argument is hugely important, but it is different than saying that AI is capable of these scenarios.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was him, but I heard him also.
It's very good on it. Yeah,
some are better to listen than others.
Yeah, there's a lot of commentary out there at the moment, for sure.
It's very interesting what you are both saying regarding what we understand by AI and the different dimensions that the humanity have to take in account. There is a question of finally of knowing that AI there is a kind of, some people saying there is an intrusion in our daily practices about EA, but that asks us the question about, as you say, Mathieu, there is a human hand behind artificial intelligence. So in terms of programming, in terms of parametering, in terms of handle it. So in terms of in the field of education, do you observe credible application of artificial intelligence on the field of education, higher education today? Can we observe credible application use of this artificial intelligence in education, in pedagogy?
Well, if I could start, it's happening, it's happening. But there are two sides in the higher education world, really, and they are the academics and the students. And there is a lot of work being done, high-level academic work being done using AI, researching AI across the disciplines, and there's no doubt about the fact that this is extremely important work. But when you move into pedagogy and learning, are we using AI for learning is one of the key things that I'm interested in. Are we using it for helping students to learn? And we're at the very beginnings of this, and I think we're in the toy stage where people are playing with it. Students are playing with whatever they can find, and I think ChatGPT is the leader in terms of what students are getting their hands on. But the explosion in the last 6 weeks, 2 months of tools, plug-in tools to large language models, is going to completely reshape the pedagogical field. And we've seen that the new generation of students are extremely digitally capable. They will add on learning tools, apps to their devices at a record speed, and they'll be using such AI-generated tools as translation, as writing, as video presentation, as slide generation, at almost lightning speed. And I think the challenge for academia is really how do we provide a framework that recognizes that this is here, this is on their devices, and how can it be used to promote a student's individual personal learning with an understanding of how they're using such technology, and an increasing responsibility, I think, between academia and the student body about the actual use in learning.
No. I will talk maybe a bit more about what is probably less prospective, but a bit on one idea, but at the periphery of pedagogy, in terms of student management, for instance, there are already experiments that have been done in the US, I think, on some campuses, following students on social networks and doing prediction based on trying to learn to do predictions based on their social interactions on who will succeed, who will fail, which you see, I don't want to condemn too fast these things, but at least there is the question, do you use that for tutoring and helping, saying, be careful, you might have some problems, might have some issues, or to select, for instance, students for master degrees or a higher level of courses, and so it's totally different use. But you can imagine also monitor children or students with cameras to assess whether you get their attention or not, whether they're doing something else. It's something you can imagine to do. I never heard about it, but you can definitely, you know, face analysis now and sentiment analysis based on videos. It's powerful, it's efficient. So you can do, it's potent. You can do things like this. If you use, and I guess we're all using that, various tools for putting material for students online, you know, digital workspace. It's crazy the number of information you can gather from that, and then you can use them directly. Like I can see if a student came, how many times he went on a document or not, or things like this. But then you can also use it to try to find patterns of in all the students who you already have your examples with the data. You have examples of data connected with success or failure or difficulties to learn this or that, and then you can try to do analytics on this. So the possibilities they're here, and of course now with large language models we see increased possibility of doing the work for students and for us too, but let's keep the focus on education, and which is interesting, and maybe I will just add that, I guess we will discuss the meaning of all of this a bit later, but just a point of warning, using ChatGPT is probably closer to, how you call that, it's not plagiarism directly, because it's there is very few probability that the same text will be generated exactly the same to one student or another, depending on everything, the cookies and the manner he phrased the question. But it's closer to, can I say counterfacting, or it's, you know, mimicking without saying human. And I read something about the need for regulation about that, you know, imitating without claiming it, without declaring it, imitating humans with large language models for like ChatGPT without saying it. And this could be, so for us, it's the same in universities as is the students were were asking to their father or their sister to do the work. It's they're not doing it, and they're presenting it as if they have done it. And then in general, it could be seen as a contrefaçon in French. I'm sorry if someone has the translation for that. I take it, but and it's interesting to see that. And then, of course, behind that there is the question of intellectual properties and things like this also, but not in terms of plagiarism, rather in terms of what is the status of all the data that have been used to train those large language models, because they took everything in Wikipedia, for instance, and would be interesting to discuss with lawyers to see if there is no problem with the licenses, Creative Commons, that are associated with Wikipedia. Normally, you should quote keeping the same. It is exactly not what ChatGPT is doing, even if he's using the information. So whatever.
Yeah, I think there's just been an announcement from Japan that it's not copyrightable, so it is usable, which is a huge sort of test case for this, because the ethics behind where that information has been, what it's been trained on, where it's the source of that information, and then crediting of it. It's a global issue, and a very important one. I think in terms of what I see on the ground with students, they do not, unless they're in the philosophy and ethics department, they do not even consider this. And it's I think it's incumbent on education, on higher education, to have modules or programs or awareness campaigns really about being critical users of large language models, how it can help, how it can assist learning, but there needs to be a student policy of recognition of what it's doing and what it's doing differently than it has done in the past. Academia has had a very strong history of accreditation of sources, of properly citing academic and any other work, and it's the same thing for AI. It has to have a regulatory framework for student use. But I do think we're currently in this position where they're running before the frameworks are up and in place and are able to be helpful for the whole ecosystem, really.
Yeah, and just to add two things. So we will have geostrategical and international competition or conflicts about recognizing or not ChatGPT as something that infringed or not IP rights, just based on law, existing law. But I think at some point we will have to look at more than that and request more than that from people implementing new technologies, because I'm pretty sure that you would have sent to any contributor to Wikipedia, look, tomorrow this will be possible. They would have probably asked for a license that would not allow it so widely and so bluntly if it's the case, because it's why also it's very important to explain what machine learning is and what it is not, because the risk is also to not being aware of what I make possible when I use free programs, for instance, on free services on internet like Google or whatever. I give power to build AI. So that's the first thing. And just returning to the education, I think it's not that a big issue to prevent malicious use of ChatGPT. You just need to do oral exams, for instance, or exams writing by hand on tables, and you check they don't have computers and whatever. So it's the same trick as before. And if you do that, it's okay to do it like that, but it's probably missing something, because behind that, and it's a good question that is put forward for us and for the students, it's why I do an exercise or not. Why do I? Because I can, for instance, but even in my case, I can summarize many different reading notes with ChatGPT. It could maybe work, but it will be interesting only if I return to it to check, and then I remember, and it's more efficient. But if I do it instead of reflecting at what I would like to synthesize and what is the meaning I got in the papers I read, then I will need to read again everything ChatGPT writes to do something, and it's not efficient to write a paper later on. The note-taking and note summarizing process, it's also something to integrate the information, at least for a while. If you do that, you will keep the information maybe for decades. If you just automatically get on your computer a summary, you will get the information, you will read it, and you will get the information during 1 week, or maybe so for some people who are hypermnesic, maybe they will get it for decades, but for most of us, it's not the case. And so it's why you are here, why you're doing the exercise. And of course, in the ideal, it would be not only to get a grade and a mark and a diploma, but also because I get, but you see, if you unfold those dimensions that are around. It goes up to what is the meaning of getting a diploma, what is the usefulness of what I learned for my insertion in society later on, and so, and who I will be in society tomorrow. And for us, it's the question of how do we prepare students to, and children also to that. And it's good to ask again this, because probably, at least for us in France, we have a tradition since the Enlightenment, and those questions, they were at the forefront in the 17th and 18th century and 19th century. But then we got a bit on the autopilot, and maybe we lost a bit the meaning. And it's a good thing to on a sense, to have the opportunity to re-ask and rediscuss those questions.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you say about assessment and the tradition of an oral assessment or a written response by hand to test knowledge, to test understanding. And it's one of the things that I'm looking at in part of my research, because in Hungary, there's still a strong tradition of assessment via that way. So you are testing the human, and I really like to see that. But I do think that many countries have really abandoned that form of assessment, even, you know, in higher education. It may be a viva at the end of a degree, but throughout there's a lot more assessment via presentation or papers, which has got a lot of implications for that. And in the school system too, you know, the way that students are assessed is really key, and it brings it back. By doing that focus that you said, it brings it back to the humanity of learning. We want students to learn how to learn, and these tools can, as you say, help them to learn. I think summarization is actually a really important aspect of learning, and maybe helps students who have struggled with attention to have at least a way in to some complex material that maybe they would just discard, they would leave, they wouldn't engage with, but with the summarizing tools that really allow it to be a starting point for understanding, I think is really a positive. If the students are guided about just those things that you said, this is the beginning of a learning journey for them, not the end.
Completely. And in the background, there is also but it's a bit the same, but I think it's important to say it that way. What is the message society, us, and students themselves, they give about what it means to learn and to succeed in education? If it's just about providing the right answer to a question without taking care and considering anything but that, it's just asking to behave like a computer. It's normal that computers can succeed to things if they're of that nature. So basically, we have to pay attention, because I believe that progressively in some places because it's easier, or because I don't know, we progressively fall into that danger, okay, whatever, of asking basically without understanding it, but asking to behave like a computer. And yes, it's okay, you have the right answer, but we don't care about anything of the meaning of the answer, why you give it, how you give it, what will be the use of the answer. I just get the question and I give the answer. It's exactly what a computer can do if it's well programmed. So, of course, if we push society at broad, and students in particular, in that direction, then it's no surprise that many elements of society can be delegated or tasks in society can be delegated to AI. But more than the sign that we become a better society with more efficiency, I feel it's better a warning sign that what we do a lot in society has no meaning and should have more. So it's also an opportunity for reacting to that.
Both of you are underlying two important points regarding the need of framework. Geoffrey, it's remind us that the importance of to have a compass, for teachers, for the university community, but also for the students. This compass will be useful for both people. Framework of a compass for use. And Mathieu, and you both agree on that, there is a question of sense, the meaning of studying, meaning of learning. And that maybe can be a contribution. That is a contribution also of the university, the academic community to the students. Why are you learning? Why you are going to the university to learn one and how? That's part of the mission of the university and of the teacher also. So in fact, this change we are facing are maybe just asking us to reformulate these missions, which is finally still at the center of the attention. We're talking about learning, transmission of knowledge, and for that we have tools. And as you say, Mathieu, AI is not a trade. The trade is how humanity will use artificial intelligence.